Back on the air. 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, starting September 8th. All right, you tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody it's going down. Not only will you hear us on air, but you will see us as well. And that's all going down September 8th from 3 to 6. What's in it for the Black People Media? Make sure you check us out. Chicago famous.
What up, what up, what up, what up? Good afternoon. Today is Friday. I don't know the actual date, but we're going to just roll with Friday. This is one half of the I Said What I Said team. Two's filling in for Herb in the one seat, which is very uncomfortable for me, but we're going to make it work. Today we got a special guest in the studio with us, man, and I've been eagerly awaiting to have a chance to have a conversation with this brother, man. From afar, I've admired him for a while, man. It's not often that I get to sit into a conversation. We getting some feedback in the studio. Filling in for Herb in the one seat, which is very uncomfortable. Yeah, that might be you, Salim. We get some feedback. It's kind of throwing me off. It's not me. It's not Salim. But we getting feedback. See, already the one spot is killing me. But we about to figure it all out. Hold on for 1 second. Producer. I'm getting feedback here. Can you help me? No, I'm getting feedback inside the studio. So I'm not understanding how it's happening like this. Again, y'all gotta bear with us, man. We working out all the kinks. Herb usually knows how to do all of this stuff. But we getting feedback. See, already the one spot's killing me. Give us 1 second here. Hold on for 1 second. Producer. I'm getting feedback here. Can you help me? That's me? That's you. That's you. We apologize, y'all. We back at it.
All of them down.
Oh man.
No.
We back at it. We got it. We got it figured out.
It was
I apologize. We got it figured out.
I'm sorry, y'all.
It's all new. Y'all hear that voice you all hear in the background is my main man, Salim Muwakil. Woo.
All right.
So yeah, man. Let's get back into it. We got a commercial plan. The commercial's playing. All right.
Boy, Mays really got this hooked up, man.
Yeah, he does, man. It's a lot going on, man. I'm technology deficient though.
yeah, you and me both, bro.
It's a lot going on here, man. We apologize. We back at it. We had some technical difficulties, but we back again, man. I was trying to give this like rearing introduction of Salim Muwakil.
And I stepped on it.
We got it all together though, man. We're gonna work out all the kinks. But best believe we're gonna have a great conversation today. Some of the conversations we wanted to get into, man, and we just gonna jump right into it. We was talking a little bit off air about, the boycott with the NBA. The boycott around the Jacob Blake, I believe his name is.
Right.
Jacob Blake shooting. That's a shame that I'm struggling with the name, but it's becoming such a common occurrence that every week you're learning a new name.
New name, man.
You know what I mean?
Every week, yes, sir.
And from the jump the other day when the NBA, let me say this too, because this is a little bit of the confusion that's happening. The NBA did not decide to boycott. That is not what happened. That's what the narrative that's being promoted is, and that's really not true. And I know usually LeBron James and LeBron James mainly. He's been the face of the NBA for a long time, specifically in regards to like social activity.
Dwayne Wade to a certain extent, right?
To a certain extent, their whole crew, right? Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, LeBron James, but LeBron is absolutely definitely seen as the leader,
Yes,
right? And in a lot of ways that permeates and translates in our community, right? There's this comparison between LeBron James and Michael Jordan all the time, right?
All the time.
Yeah, LeBron James Michael Jordan might be the greatest ball player, but when you step off the court, LeBron James is the greatest athlete.
Absolutely.
And they base that on a lot of the social justice movements that he makes.
Extracurricular stuff.
All of his extracurricular stuff, right? And when you really get to the core of some of the stuff that he's doing, and I don't want this to come off as being disrespectful because it's not. But when you start thinking about the core of how he gets branded, the way he gets branded as if he's doing these things specifically for our community.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to the core of a lot of stuff that's being done, it's usually corporate sponsored, and it really doesn't feed our community. When you think about the school that he built in Akron, when you get to the numbers, those are not really black kids that are reaping the benefits of that school.
I didn't know.
You know,
that.
just think about Akron. Who's in Akron? You know what I mean? We just not there in regards to population.
That's true. That's true.
You know what I mean? So a lot of that, you know, when you start thinking about Nike sponsored activity, and I do not want this to sound disrespectful because it's not. But then you could juxtapose that with somebody like Jalen Rose, who's in Detroit, who's had a school for 10 years almost at this point, who, and it goes, I think, from 8th grade to college. And I think the demographic there is almost like 90% black, and he doesn't get the same credit that LeBron does. And sometimes you got to ask yourself, is that a narrative that is being created so he can look like a social justice warrior, and everybody just kind of accepts that activity from him, or is that actually what he is, where he is, and what he's doing? You know, because I think sometimes he gets credit that he doesn't deserve in that regard.
LeBron.
But I think it's the way that we sell the conversation, so that no one actually looks at the NBA as kind of an entity that's permeating racism in a lot of ways, right? They don't have the branding that, let's say, the NFL has. Right. You know what I mean? And a lot of the reason they don't have the branding the NFL has is because they got these kind of stories that they can push out to the masses all the time. Like, hey man, look what we're doing. Look what LeBron's doing. Even that's like the last couple of days, right? The NBA boycotted. Well, that's not really true. Right. What happened was the Milwaukee Bucks decided at the very last minute that they were no longer they decided to run this operation. Now, the reason this is important in context is because how the NBA usually works is everybody does follow LeBron's lead, even the players. Right, so when they talked about COVID and playing in the bubble, the decision was really left up to LeBron. There was players like Patrick Beverley that came out and said, you know, we're gonna do whatever LeBron said we're gonna do, and I think that's very important and interesting in the context of how this played out because LeBron didn't lead this. Right, LeBron just kind of was reacting, you know, and in his reaction, it was like, oh, I guess I gotta stand in front of this, and now we see a day later. They're all standing back down, and I'm wondering if that's LeBron's impact, right?
Because he's one.
He's
he urged
usually
him to
the
go
guy.
back. Right?
He's usually the guy. So yeah. I don't know what's going on with that in regards to. I don't know. I really want to talk about this in the context of masculinity, right? Because when they first did it, I was like, man, that's dope. I supported 100%. You know, I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that they're standing in the popularity of their masculinity, and then a day later they shut down, and it's like, what was I really championing? And I really, you know, I'm interested to hear your perspective on
well,
that.
Yeah, you know, the fact that they did it, man, was so unprecedented that it was the symbolic majesty of it as an unprecedented event. I think is the most important thing. It forced people to look at what happened in Kenosha through different eyes, through a larger vision, and I think that was the immediate effect of what they did, and I think they just began to calculate what would be the benefit of prolonging this symbolic act, or what would be the deficits of it, and I think they came out to the conclusion that. And probably LeBron helped them to make this decision. From what I understand, he was influential in bringing them back. So I think it was symbolically significant. And symbols are important, man.
See, I don't know, man. I'm tired of symbols, Celine. And I get that, right? I fully get that and I understand that. But that's kind of my problem, right? We've been to this space and place where it's been like...
We haven't been here before. Not with athletes acting in concert in that
what
way.
What about the Ali Summit? What about Jim Brown?
You know what? That's we should go into that in more depth sometime because that had mercenary motives underlying it.
What do you mean?
There was, you know, there were promoters involved in trying to get this. They were involved. I'll talk about it at another time. But
in that vein, right, without even going in depth, in a lot of ways, that's the same kind of motives that I think are behind a lot of stuff that LeBron does. It's mercenary motives, right?
Always commercial motives.
Yes,
Yes,
commercial motives, right?
But-
So we look with Cap. We can go
But
with Cap.
this was nationwide. It was inter-athletic. You can say, you know, the different sports leagues were involved. It was unprecedented, man. It's just one of many unprecedented events that happened in the wake of George Floyd during the age of the pandemic. A lot of stuff is unprecedented, man. They had this amazing demonstration in Brussels. In Brussels, man, of all places, Belgium, 50,000 people pro Black Lives Matter. It may be theatrical or some sort of publicity prop, but it's unprecedented to see that. There were photos of George Floyd on mosques in Syria. Half destroyed mosques in Syria. There were photos of George Floyd. That's significant, man.
I agree, right? But I think it's trendy. Maybe trendy is not the right word, right? I oftentimes wonder if the backlash from George Floyd was about George Floyd or about the contempt and just where we in the environment in that which we've inherited, right? So we talk about the wealth gap and wealth calcification, and when I think about it, I don't think most people are responding to George Floyd personally. I don't think most people are responding to racism. I don't think most people are responding to.
But there was something extra dramatic, I think, because of that video by that sister who caught George Floyd being choked. And
it's traumatic
out for his mother and all of that.
It's
I think
traumatic.
that hits a special chord in our humanity, and I think that's part of the reason why there was such an outpouring of support. But you're also right. I think that it's part of a pattern.
Yeah, it is part of a pattern. I think that I think the universe has a way of correcting itself, right? That's what I personally believe.
Okay.
And I think we're reaching the bottom of the barrel. And I think the universe is correcting itself. I think the frequency in which the players are operating on, even when we talk about the NBA or when we talk about the young boys throwing bricks through the window downtown, I think the frequency has reached the point where it has to self-correct, right? So whether or not they got the information or not, if they just operating within the trueness of their own spirit, the universe is guiding that frequency. Now they might not be able to articulate why, but the energy that's permeating inside of them is saying, I need to do something, right? Now, before we went live on there, we was talking about a little bit about masculinity, right? And I told you I'm from the Amos Wilson School of Masculinity.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that Amos says about
Great
masculinity,
theorist. Very underrated theorist.
I would agree, right? One of the things that Amos says about masculinity is that it's not a consistent, right? It's kind of it's a construct, right? And he said that masculinity is kind of developed based in the social environment in which you inherit.
Absolutely.
Right? And if we fully, and this goes back to the quote that we always use here in regards to our show, which is the Neely Fuller quote that says, until you fully understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you, right? So if you're operating under that paradigm, that everything is operating under the construction or the umbrella of white supremacy, then our positioning and our positioning in this environment, we'd have to accept it as being prisoners of war. Hence, the environment that we've inherited as warriors. We have to respond to this environment as warriors or as prisoners of war, right? It's a choice. But the choice of staying stagnant in that prisoner of war, you'll never achieve said level of masculinity, at least through Amos's theory, right? So the only role we really have here is to destroy said system that has us captive. Now, what I've seen and what I've been born into is that we have an affinity for said system, right? We love said system, and if you love said system
we've been socialized.
We've been socialized for it, of course, right? But goes back to the same thing with the quote, right? We've been socialized by that standard. This is all we know. But because we've been socialized into loving said system, how do we ever really truly achieve masculinity if we buy into that theory that Amos Wilson says? I think that's a daunting question.
Yeah, and I think it is appropriate that you frame it that way, that masculinity is a construct. It's not anything that is. I mean, there's some things that are inherent, like perhaps upper body strength, a tendency toward aggressiveness because of testosterone, high levels of testosterone. But other than that, those other traits are socially dependent. They're dependent on our social position. Often on our production mode. You know, like for example, in agrarian societies where there's a need, where you need upper body strength in order to produce resources, then masculinity is highly treasured. Highly treasured. Anything that appears to be less than masculine is absolutely disdained. You know, that's where homophobia comes from. People are afraid of homosexuality because it would mean the end of their society. If heterosexual couplings are discouraged, then there's not enough workforce to produce resources. And so homophobia is a natural way to live. And so masculinity has a different valence in those kinds of society. But the further you get away from societies that require these large labor forces, the less masculinity or rigid sexual roles becomes important. Now masculinity is still important, but it just changes its complexion. You know, it changes its focus because there's less need for certain kinds of masculine activities. Also, you know, extends into divinity. I mean, you find, like in many of our Kemetic societies, there were matriarchal gods. There were goddesses. Society worship matriarchs because feminine qualities were important for production.
So I personally think we live in a matriarch right now.
You
right?
think so?
I think the black community is absolutely a matriarch.
Okay.
We're about to go into break, but I've heard you make that homosexuality argument before,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to rebut that.
All
because
right.
I don't agree with that at all. But we got to go to a break.
That's good.
We're going to come back in, about 2 and 2 or whatever the break is. So yeah, 2 minutes. So we're going into break right now, man. We appreciate y'all listening. You are rocking what I said on What's in It for the Black People Media, and we'll be right back.
Oh man,
Generations.
that's beautiful, brother. I want some contestation on this.
I gotta, we struggling. I don't know what the hell is going on here with this technology. I'm doing everything wrong.
It's messing up again.
I got you on here, but it's not right. I got you on here being filmed through here when you should be being filmed through here. And I don't know how that happens. I push the button.
Real quick, adjust his camera. His camera's a little bit, sorry about that, his camera's a little bit too high. So let's bring him to bring you up or bring it down.
So no, that's not what's happening, right? Because his camera is coming through here. Right.
I mean, it looks good, but
No. Check me out. It's not right. It's not right. I know it's not right.
okay.
So his camera should be coming from there.
Free security analysis, free equipment, and free installation.
Maze.
A limited time offer. Be proactive. Call today. Don't delay. 708-251-5069. That's
Yeah, so
251.
but he's coming through.
The first 10 callers receive a free
I got him
camera
coming
valued at
through
$250.
the actual. He's coming through the iPad instead of the actual cell phone. Yeah. Cause I don't know why I can't get it to go to the iPad picture.
Safety is our priority.
I'm trying to. I got it on the AB joint.
What's up? This
Okay.
is Mike Love. Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Diz. Sounds like Bad Boy Radio. Yeah, but it's not Bad Boy Radio because we are now Chicago famous, but we are back on the air.
3 to 6, Monday through Friday, starting September 8th.
All right, tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody it's going down. Not only will you hear us on air, but you'll be able to see us as well, and that's all going down September 8th from 3 to 6.
Put it on
What's
mute.
in it for the Black People Media? Make sure you check us out.
Okay.
Chicago famous.
This
Okay.
secure moment is brought to you by Secure Home and Automation, your premier authorized home security dealer. Home invasions occur every 23 seconds.
I do.
Fire every 85 seconds, and medical emergencies occur suddenly. In times like these, get secured home and automation and an affordable wireless home alarm system with professional monitoring. This includes fast emergencies response,
Right.
free security analysis, free equipment, and free installation. A limited time offer. Be proactive. Call today. Don't delay. 708-251-5069. That's 708-251-5069. The first 10 callers receive a free
Got it.
camera valued at $250. 251-5069.
Right, I
Visit
don't.
our website,
I don't.
SecureHomeAndAutomation.com. Secure Home and Automation, where your life safety is our priority.
Is it really a good idea to have the same senator for 3 generations? I support term limit for all elected officials. Our senators need to bring home growth for our business community, jobs, housing, service for our senior citizens, and healthcare. We need new
Yeah, I got it.
a new approach to federal representation. I'm Dr. Will Wilson. Vote for me and send me to Washington, D.C. God bless.
Paid for by Willie Wilson for Senate 2020.
I got it. We going back on, Maze. I got it. Yep.
Alright, cool.
All right. Yo, 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 you are now rocking what I said. Today we only got one half of our team, man. Herb is actually in D.C. at the March on Washington.
March.
Yeah, I wish we could get Herb on the line, man. I'm interested to see what's going down there.
The Sharpton March.
I think that's more of that symbolism that you
Yeah,
talked
it
about.
is,
I'm
it
not,
is,
and
it is.
specifically with Reverend Al running it, but
I was actually there at the first one, man.
really,
The first one, yes, sir.
Really?
The March on Washington, where King said, his thing.
I would love to get into more about that. I was at the Million Man March. And
I was
it had
there, too.
An amazing effect on my life.
Did it? Yeah. It was it was the most powerful gathering of humans I've ever been to.
The March on Washington or the Million Man March?
Million Man March.
Really?
It was incredible. You know that.
How, well, I don't know it in comparison to the March on Washington.
It was nothing in comparison to the Million Man March, brother.
Really?
Don't you? It was the most. The
You keep saying, don't I think? I don't have nothing to compare
You
it
said
to.
you at
I was
it.
at the Million
Well,
Man March, but I can't compare it to
I
the
know,
March
but-
on Washington.
But it was splendid, wasn't it?
It was, man. It was different. I've never experienced nothing like it before or after.
And there was nothing like it before or after. It was absolutely miraculous, almost. I say, but I was at the first. We went there for women, because we heard there would be a lot of women, and there were a whole lot of women. That's why we went. We didn't even hear King or any, but we got pulled into the momentum of the movement by the energy of the people who were there. But we were Malcolm people.
Mm-hmm.
And we just went there for the women. We thought it was going to be easy pickings, we were a little bit entranced by what went down.
I think that's an interesting statement you just made, right? You said we went for the women, but we were Malcolm people, right? I'm a Malcolm person too, but I'm also a King person.
Okay.
But I'm also a Kwame Ture person.
Okay.
But I can go down. I'm also a Minister Farrakhan person.
Yes, sir.
And I know that I'm an anomaly in that sense. And a lot of times when I get into these arguments, into these conversations, it's like people pick one team and they can't see the nuance or the value in each of the players at the table, right? I think all of them people bring something extremely valuable to the conversation. Now, I'm not fully bought into either theory, right? But it's like, okay, I like what Malcolm says here, and I like what King says here. And if I'm being honest, my most favorite out of all of them is Stokely.
It's Stokely.
It really is Stokely, because he kind of represents the balance to me of both ideas.
He did.
You know what I mean?
He did, man. I mean, he was a scientific socialist, and he was a Pan-Africanist, nationalist at the same time. That's a rare combination, and not many people can maintain that kind of synthesis like Kwame did.
Mm-hmm.
I came through all of those ideologies, man. I came through the Panther Party. I was an editor of Muhammad Speaks with the Nation of Islam when it evolved, and so I kind of saw the insides of many of those things, and so I understand what you're saying, and I empathize with your ecumenicalism.
So I got to go get a dictionary because I don't even know what that means.
Your ability to synthesize all of these different ideas.
Yeah. Man, I appreciate it. But I think that's part of our issue, right? I think because we don't really dive too deep into the theories, it's like we latch on to the personalities.
That's true.
Right? And it shows in not just how we relate to just black leadership, but to all leadership. Right? I think we have this election going on right now where the speech is anything but Trump. While not really knowing anything about the philosophies of the Democratic candidates that we're running.
That's right.
So anything but Trump sounds good in theory, but you might be running into someone else just like Trump with a different name. You know what I mean? Because you don't know nothing about his philosophies.
Symbolism, right?
Symbolism, right? So there lies, for me again, That's the problem. I know I see the value of symbolism, but there's also has to be a crux of us that are dealing within the substance of the conversation, and I don't really see that represented in too many places, right? Which is also why I was eager to talk to you. It doesn't exist very many places.
Yeah, that's true. Symbolism is a shorthand, man. It's a shorthand. I mean, in a lot of ways, we live in a symbolic world. Because the only way we can describe our world is through symbols, words. That's it. Concepts can't be described. So we live in the world that we construct is symbolic. The real world is under these symbols, and that's the world that has meaning.
They say all the world's a stage and every actor plays his part,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And I think we got to get to the conversation of who's producing the show.
Woo.
Right?
Go ahead, bro.
Because we just been acting, and therein lies, in my opinion, of course, but our major downfalls, right? So you get the NBA, I don't even know what we would call it at this point, slow in programming, because it wasn't a boycott at this point.
No, that's true. But the problem, Tucson, I think, is that we don't have a viable alternative.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a viable alternative socialization process, we could turn our back on what's here. But there's some things that are here that are useful. I mean, American culture is really an accretion of the best practices of other civilizations in many ways, and many of those civilizations were black civilizations. They don't get the credit, but a lot of the innovations, the social mechanics of how to operate the society are important. And we have to, the difficult thing is to discern what is part of the programming and what's an important aspect to learn.
See, I'm about to piss you off and everybody else who's
Okay, go
listening
ahead,
right now.
Oh,
One of the things that I do.
You got to piss me off. First of all, with the homosexual. Right,
we're gonna get to that.
Okay,
We're gonna
okay.
get to that. But one of the things I did agree with Kanye was that he said it. He articulated it very wrongly. But I think, and this is my personal opinion again, I think he was trying to get a point across when he said that slavery was a choice, right? I think what he was trying to articulate was that you always have a choice.
That's right. He's right.
You always have a choice, and that's true. We just don't like to consider that choice, right? So when we ask for solutions, you hear that all the time. Well, I ain't talking about the problem. You can explain the problem greatly. Well, what's the solution? And then you put a solution on the goddamn table, and the person who asked you for that same solution sees how much they have to sacrifice to realize that solution, and then they say, well, no, that's not the kind of solution we're looking for. Then you don't fucking want a solution. You want comfortable oppression. That's the conversation we got to dig past, right? So that's where we get to the production of the show versus the actors of the show, right? The actors of the show are just following the script. The producer set aside time to write it. He sacrificed the storyline, right? So the actors are sacrificing, I guess, their time, I guess you could say, but they're following the script that the producer produces. We got to get away from that and start producing the narratives for our own lives.
Yes, I agree. But you need a theme. Even in jazz, man, a soloist needs a theme. If you don't have a theme, then you're just off in the universe, free-forming. And we don't have an alternative theme.
So would the theme be an identity?
Right, we do. We are searching for an identity, we haven't clarified it. That's why, as we've talked before about this, about the ADOS movement, and how I think important that the function that Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, the function that they perform in clarifying our status as descendants of slavery, I think is an important clarification. I think it helps us get closer to who we are and our specific needs.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm so intrigued by our conversation. I keep missing these cues from the producer about these breaks, but I want to get back into the conversation about homosexuality, because we're going to dig into that identity conversation in response to homosexuality, at least from my perspective, and we're going to dig into some more of these conversations as soon as we return. You are rocking with What's In It for the Black People Radio. This is I Said What I Said. Standing in for Herb Howard today is me at the one seat, and we got my favorite guest so far, Salim Muwakil. We'll be right back.
This secure Moment is brought to you by Secure Home and Automation.
Perfect. Two things. Watch your positioning in the camera. Make sure you're always try to be even in with the camera on view, because sometimes you got half body in, half body out. Also, too, when you come back from break, go ahead and hit your first spot, and then at the bottom of the hour, hit the second one. So when you come back, welcome back, hit the spot, and then introduce him again, and then you guys can continue the conversation.
All right.
Where you from, bro?
Shot-town. West side.
All right, yes sir. Good to meet you, man.
Always, man.
Don't delay. 708
You get this thing Shine on Showtime?
Shine.
Shine. It's a series.
Oh yeah, I've seen it, man. What'd you think of that?
I'm not mad at it, man. You know, there's some problems with it.
There's
You
some
know,
problems
that
with it.
homosexual thing that
There's
Lena
some
got,
problems.
that she got. If she get, oh man, I thought I had killed it. But that's my man from Wisconsin. I should talk to him.
Is it really a good idea to have the same senator for 3 generations?
Man, I know y'all are listening in, man. We appreciate you if you could share the broadcast. I know y'all bearing with us through these technical difficulties. I don't even know if they technical difficulties at this point or just I can't do this stuff. Also, man, share, hit them stars, man. We greatly appreciate it. DSNs, man, we greatly appreciate it. Kane, we appreciate it.
Brother Kane, what's up, man?
What's up? This is Mike Love.
Hey, what's going on?
Goddess, we appreciate it.
Sounds like Bad Boy Radio.
Yeah, but it's not.
You know, then they gave us the moniker of intellectual thuggery, so you
Yeah.
been initiated just like a gang initiation.
I'm an intellectual thug, man.
Here's what you able to see.
Yeah, I had a name similar to that once upon a time.
What's in it for the Black People Media? Make sure you check us out.
Chicago famous.
No, but we need intellectual audacity, man. That's
I agree.
exactly
I
what
think
we
gumption is more important than anything else at
Yes,
this
sir.
point.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And we are back. This is Tucson Werner. I am sitting in talking to Salim Muwakil. This is What's in it for the Black People Media. Man, we got to... I wanted to talk about some of the stuff we had left off with about the homosexuality piece and around black masculinity in general. But before we get into that, man, you know, some of what we're doing over here with the What's in it for the Black People Media is trying to do what we always talk about doing, right? It's building a collective to build out, to be able to operate and participate in capitalism in a way that we control and dominate and dictate. You know, and in that vein, man, I want to shout out one of our sponsors. Shop at the Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesdays through Saturdays, or you can find them online at www.solobeauty.supply.com. You know, before, you know, we went on air today, Maze was telling me that, you know, when we had that first little, I hate calling them riots, uprising in the city where they was burning down people's stuff. They was like, he was appreciating. He said that he was at Solo Beauty and he saw, you know, stuff going up in smoke around him, but no one even attempted to touch Solo Beauty. And I kind of had that same experience. I was on 47th Street and there was a few black-owned restaurants actually, and none of them went up. Now, a few days later, a few of them went up, and I don't know if they went up because somebody else came back and burned them, or, you know, people was doing insurance scams. I don't know really what the answer was, but the day I was out there, I witnessed those establishments being avoided by the crowds of people out there, and in a way, I was proud of that. Not even in a way, I was proud of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was extremely proud of that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But it shows some agency even in the midst of chaos.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before we left off, man, before we left off for that first break.
Oh, you know, let me say something quick while it's on my mind. That bumper music that the brother brought us in with is Mos Def, and there's a line in it I think is one of the baddest lines in hip hop. He said the windows on the Ave look like sad eyes. I mean, that's a beautiful line, man, because it is. I mean, he talking about in the ghetto and in the hood. You look down the block and it looks like the windows are crying. It looks like, if you really look at it that way, and I don't think any other poet has captured that mood like Mos Def did in that jam. So I just wanted to mention.
So I'm also extremely impressed and intrigued about your understanding and relationship to hip hop, man. I listen to your show often and I see you play some jams that I know the average person doesn't know. You know,
I grew up on it, man. I was there when it was created.
I'm intrigued, right? And I think again back to the viability of how system and substance works, and even frequency, right? I think we don't really give music as just value, right? I think music has the ability to raise your frequency.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I think that hip hop has kind of been manipulated to a point where we kind of lose sight of that, or we're losing the value of that frequency. It's all kind of being dumbed down, and it's kind of a mundane sound at this point. You know what I mean? You got it's one long song on the radio.
Man, it's depressing to listen to it, man.
Yeah, and I think it's designed to control you, right? To keep you at a very low frequency, you know. But when you start thinking of the origins of hip hop and the kind of creativity was coming up out of there, like it shaped a lot of my experience, man. You think about, you know, I'm from Chicago, Salim is from New York. And we was joking about this the other day when you say Chicago's a real 80 year town.
It is,
right? And I talked about, you know, the diversity of New York. And out of that diversity, you get a lot of different conversations, right? But at the early stages of hip hop, man, when you started hearing like Big Daddy Kane, Granddaddy IU, Rakim, they were coming out, and not only in the music, but even in like their appearance. I remember distinctively Rakim would wear a Circle 7 chain. You know what I mean?
5%.
Right. 5%. And I was like, man, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? I just thought it was a dope design. But as a child, you're intrigued and you want to be a part of.
That's
so you start to invest in.
That's right.
And when you start to invest in, you learn information. Getting past the symbolism and getting to the substance.
Where we're coming from.
You know
and hip hop was created really by a synthesis of yard culture from Jamaica.
I know.
So that was big in New York. I mean, New York was a big so-called West Indian town. And so that was one of the reasons why it was the birthplace.
I used to spend my summers in New York, man. Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy.
Oh man, go
ahead,
brother.
Used to be at Albee Square Mall and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. I know it well, man.
Spent a couple summers down there, man. My godparents lived in Brooklyn, so you know I had a distinct relationship with New York.
Then you know.
Yeah, it was intriguing, but it's nothing like this city here.
No, Chicago is a unique animal, man.
This is Mecca for black people, in my opinion.
Ado's capital.
It is. It really is. But to the point of homosexuality you was talking about, because I don't want to get past that. And you was also talking about The Chi a minute ago, like what I thought about this TV series, The Chi. You know, I think that, first of all, let me say this. In my professional life, I work in design and marketing, right?
I understand you did that, right?
Yeah, I did.
Beautiful
and most
work,
people look at design and marketing as a artistic or a creative venture, and it is at some level.
How'd you get into that, man?
My dad was an artist, right? And I saw him struggle in making money, and I knew I had the gene. I just didn't want to struggle in making money. So I figured out where I could make the most money with my skill set and not be bored going to work every day.
Okay.
Being an artist by its very nature, too, is also, like, it's a different mindset behind being an artist. Right, you pay attention to the world in ways I know most people don't pay attention to the world.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So even how, you know, I know I can write a little bit, I can speak a little bit, but all that is formed in my viewpoint of the world, and it's because I'm paying attention. You know what I mean? But a lot of people think that's just a creative exploration, but it's not. It's
a
scientific.
sensibility, man.
It's scientific. You know what I mean? And it dictates thought. It really does. You know what I mean? So even going back to the homophobia conversation, right? I don't disagree with the definition of your idea or how you get to that. I guess how you get to that perspective. I don't. All of that makes sense. It's all logical. You know what I mean? But the phobia part of that homo is also logical.
Yes,
because if it destroys society, it is logical to be afraid of.
It destroy. If you see the most lethal danger to society is overpopulation. If you look at history, that's what kills most societies. If they get too many people to feed, they can't feed them.
Well, we don't live in that society.
We don't live in that society, but there's a safety valve in the cultures that prevents that. Because see, homosexuality is pretty much fixed in the human population. From 5 to 9%, most anthropologists say you find it throughout history that's the expression of homosexuality in the population. Some cultures emphasize tolerance of it, and those are the cultures that don't need large labor forces. So that means that they are they're designing their society to guard against overpopulation.
So I know this is a delicate topic, right? So I want to be very clear in how I articulate myself.
Okay.
Right? I'm not homophobic. I'm not anti-homosexual. I don't give a shit what you do in the privacy of your own home, right? but I do think there's a conscious effort to market certain ideas to our community. Right.
There is.
And I know because I work in this area, I work in this field, I've studied it for most of my damn life. I know how effective that is, right? And I think there's a larger conversation at play here, and it's not population control.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's well, it's population control, but not in the sense of population control in the way we think of it.
Well, see, this is beneath consciousness. This is not something that people desire. This is our epigenetic pattern playing out. We have epigenetic patterns as well that respond to social pressures, and it's beneath our consciousness. What's happening. And you're right. There are messages coming out that are encouraging homosexuality, or not so much but gender flexibility, so-called. There are messages because we move into another age. We move into a robotic, artificial intelligence age where human labor will become increasingly
There's no value to it.
Exactly. So we don't need many people.
We don't need people.
And so the culture is dealing with that by making homosexuality a much more acceptable option. Exactly. Yes, sir.
Well, see, I could agree with that if that was across the board.
Okay.
But it's not across the board. And in the way that it's happening it's distinctively different. Right? So, and you can study this probably for the last 15 years, 20 years, maybe even further back than that. Right? But I've been conscious of it since probably for 15 years. So, if you think about television and television's effects, and you think about some of the programming that's been on television, to say that white homosexuals don't exist on television, that's not true. Right? But they do exist, but they exist in a way that they're still masculine. And I think therein lies the context of my problem.
Okay,
with the
I
conversation,
got what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
you
sir.
see white homosexuality in suits and ties. You see black homosexualities in tights and high
Yes, sir,
heels.
yes, sir, yes,
and
sir.
that's a very different context, right? The white homosexual is making a sexual decision. You understand? His masculinity is never threatened. His sexual decision is something that happens. That's a small portion
It's
of
a
who
sexual
he
preference,
is.
not
It's
a
sexual
gender
preference.
identity.
It's a sexual preference, not a gender identity.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right,
sir.
whereas you start to promote the black visual of homosexuality. You see the Desperate House. I don't even know the name of the show, so I don't watch none of this shit. But you see them high heels and purses, and changing the inflections in their voices. Now that gets back to the Amos Wilson's conversation about masculinity.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
what
sir.
is your value in this construct, right?
Yes, sir.
If we have to be shaped to become warriors, you ain't gonna get it out of that shit.
That's right.
Now, you can also go back to the Tommy Curry conversation. And Tommy Curry says, the author of The Man Now, he says that there's no humanity attached to black maleness, right? And they say you could be, it's humanity attached to black females, but there's no humanity attached to blackness, period, right? But in context, you can find humanity through being a woman. You can find humanity through being a child. You can also, in this particular environment, as a black man, you can find humanity through homosexuality, right? But as a black heterosexual
cultural
male,
empathy. That's what
but
you
it's
mean.
still humanity,
Yeah, but
right?
I mean-
Somebody gives a shit about you,
Right, that's a
You know,
cultural empathy, but it's
right,
not, because
right.
humanity implies something that's distinct and inherent. But cultural empathy is something that's relative. And
I get you saying. I agree
right
with that. So there's no cultural empathy. We can change the word. That's fine. But there's none for the black heterosexual
that's
male.
right. You're right.
Right. And what you start to see in today's environment
That's a good insight. Yes,
is
sir.
that we become missing in society in totality. Right. You know, there's arguments about even to the Jacob Blake conversation. I think this is so goddamn interesting. That was a man who was shot by the police with 3 of his children in the back of his car, right? He was going, the story goes, he was checking on his children to make sure they were okay. Not that he was threatening in any way to the police.
Right.
I'm making sure that my children know that I'm okay, and I'm making sure they're okay. I've personally been in this position with the police before.
Okay.
Right? Now, outside of that, though, they do the press conference, and his father shows up empathetic. I just want to touch and hug my child. That was the father's ass, Jacob's father. I just want to touch, kiss, and hug and love on my child. So here's a philosophy that happening that they say doesn't exist in the black
that's
lexicon.
right,
These
that's
are 3 generations of
That's
black
true.
men showing love to each other.
That's a good point.
You understand what I'm saying? Nobody's having that goddamn conversation. We just missing that. We have no humanity attached to black heterosexualness. It's like, fuck him. He's expendable.
That's true, man. That's true. In fact, the only thing I've often noted that really the only thing that black men are given agency for or some kind of cogence is to be able to inspire fear. Now, as soon as we show up in the elevator, that's what we represent.
Which is
fear.
why a policeman can always get away with shooting your ass. I just got my concealed and carry. The only argument that you have to have when you have a concealed and carry license is that I fear for my life. Now, in order to make sure that that argument plays out in court, is you have to kill the motherfucker that you shoot. Because if the dead man has an argument, he can fight back. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to kill his ass, because all you have to do is create an environment where you say, I fear for my life. Well, how fucking hard is that to say when it's a black man that you're shooting? Because everybody's afraid of us.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? But they're afraid of us based on a narrative created by someone else.
Yes, sir.
Right? Which goes back into us tapping into our masculinity. Right? Now we need to give your ass something to fear for real. Because the real devil is just manipulating the goddamn playbook. Because he's the most devilish motherfucker on this planet. That's the real, at least my perspective.
Well, we've incorporated this notion that we have to be non-threatening, because independent black man was the most lethal threat to American society at one point in history, and that cultural threat that we represent has been embedded in American culture, and because of slavery. Anything that threatened the unity of slaves threatened the economic viability of this culture, and it couldn't be tolerated whatsoever. So that was extremely verboten or forbidden for any black man to exhibit any kind of independent strain. But so because it represented the possibility of rebellion, and so that's what you're talking about.
So there's no assimilating to overcome that idea, though.
There's no assimilating, but we don't know what represents. If we only represent threat, that's not enough. See, we're still operating vis-a-vis white people. It's almost like folks will say that you call yourself black because it's really in opposition to white. But really, what that does is that generalizes an entire continent of people. Africa, which is the most diverse continent on the planet. There's more genetic diversity on the continent of Africa than there is in the rest of the planet combined.
Man, Salim, it's so interesting talking to you, brother. It's like we never finish a concept because we keep moving forward, right? So we got to go into this break real quick, man. You are listening to I Said What I Said Radio on What's In It for the Black People Media. I am Tucson Warner. This is Salim Muwakil. Herb Howard is down in D.C. He will be back Monday, God willing. Let's take this break real quick, though. We'll be right back.
Well, we'd like to hear what Herb got to say about this thing, boy. You said he was going to call in, though, right?
I can't get him in tune, so he's out there at the march. I tried to hit him, and the way we're doing this is, May said we could tap in somehow, but it's too much for me to take a chance.
I hear
I mean, I don't know.
I'm thinking, man, maybe just
to be for sure, you guys can hear my speak out here, right? I got you playing on the speak out here, too. Second read after this, and then once we come back 2 o'clock and we take that top of the hour break, I'm gonna come in and get the phone set up for you.
Okay.
You guys good, comfortable?
Yeah.
Oh, man, gotcha. You need water? Good.
Water would be cool, man.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
251-5069. That's 708.
Hey, doing this read and all that shit, this is all beyond my scope. Man. I've never done this shit.
No, but for real, Herb is a natural for this stuff, man.
He really is, man.
Bro. He really is. Yeah, man, I was, my cousins, man, used to be like part owners of the thing called Harlem World, which is where a whole lot of hip hop began.
I'm hip to Harlem World.
Yeah.
I'm hip to the Harlem World. I was just, matter of fact, Loon is one of the cats that was a part of Harlem World.
Yes, sir.
And I'm supposed to be getting in tune. We're going to have Loon on the show hopefully fairly soon.
Okay.
Outside of here, man, I got my hands in a whole lot of shit. At least I try to have my hands in a whole lot of shit.
Any cold ones when I got you on here. You good one?
I'm good. And Loomis just came home from the joint, and he's an Orthodox Muslim now, so he's got a very different perspective on how he approaches hip hop culture. He did an interview with the Breakfast Club, I think, maybe a week ago. It was kind of interesting, man. I was interested.
Okay, I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to get him on.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I've been talking to my son about getting him on, and you know, sometimes I struggle though, man, because I know my thoughts and ideas is a little different than everybody else's, and I know everybody's not so much interested in alignment as they are in being right.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Which goes back to why I fuck with Stokely, but it's also why Stokely was never king of Malcolm. In regards to notoriety and visibility, because Stokely had that balance. That's the one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I hate to, you know, I don't want to sound like but I was in Uganda with Stokely.
We finna come back in now. Yo, we are back, man. This is What's In It for the Black People Radio. This is I Said What I Said Radio. I am Tucson Werner. Standing in for Herb Howard today is my main man, Salim Wakil. What's In It for the Black People Media is going to change the way you see radio forever. That's because on Tuesday, September 8th, Chicago Famous with Mike Love and the Diz is joining What's In It for the Black People Media family. Tune in every day from 3 to 6 p.m. for Chicago Famous with Chicago radio legends Mike Love and the Diz. They'll talk everything from music, entertainment, sports, politics, race, culture, and everything happening today. Plus, they'll take it back to the old school for some of the features and interviews that you love. That's right. It's Chicago Famous with Mike Love and the Diz. Every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on What's In It for the Black People Media, Chicago Famous. So before we left out of here, man, we was kind of, we all over the place, but I like to say it's the Herb too. We never really all over the place. It's really just one conversation.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
It seems like you're all over the place, but it's really just
jazz,
one conversation.
Man. We got one theme and we just soloing a little
That's
bit.
right. That's right. That's what it works. So the other day I got invited to one of these secret ass, private ass, bullshit ass Chicago meetings where they bring in high ranking police, high ranking political officials,
type.
A bunch of bullshit from the University of Chicago people, and it was intriguing, right? Because it was a meeting about police reform, and it goes into all of these conversations we've been having today, and the police were basically there saying that you can't blame police, which is the narrative that they always have to take, because they have to toe the company line. You can't blame the police for this. Politicians was in there saying, well, you can't blame the politicians for this, because they're all toeing the company line. And I'm so used to these meetings. It's like, this is not no new shit. I come to them and I see them and I sit there because I'm working my Mace Jackson, my capitalist angle. You know what I mean? And inherently though, I see the dysfunction, right? Now I see the dysfunction. I know this shit is dysfunctional, but sometimes I wonder if the people who are towing the company line really see it as dysfunctional. I think they believe the company line. I don't think they're just towing the company line. I think they've bought into the company line. And when I think about how we've been conditioned in America, so I think, I say this often too, I said that an older guy hit me one time, he said, man, the moral standard of America was always encapsulated in the black community because that's all we've ever had. America's never been moral, right? The black community in America.
We've been the moral center.
We've been the moral center of America since existence.
That's true.
Right? And I think that with my generation, it was probably my generation. It may be the boomers too, but in my generation in a different kind of way. Right? We were like hyper capitalists in theory. We didn't have the money, but in theory we were hyper capitalists, right? All of our value assets is wrapped into capitalism. When you think about hip hop today,
that's true,
it's
right.
awesome, gluttony kind of shit in regards to I need money, clothes, and hoes. That was the very nature of hip hop since 1990, probably.
That's right.
Right? So we've kind of taken on this kind of moniker of hyper capitalism without capitalism. You understand what I'm saying? So mentally, we identify with this gluttonous ass lifestyle.
How many hip hop lyrics contain Trump's name?
Man, you go back in, it's hundreds and hundreds of records,
That's
right? And hundreds of records. But physically, we didn't have the capital.
That's right.
We didn't have the resources, but we had the mentality, right? And I think that's playing out today. So when we get, because people who are having these conversations, where I say that I don't think they just towing the company line, I think they believe in them. They're people from my generation, right? So let's say if you in that room, if you in them rooms I'm in, you making $100,000. That's just the very nature of it. I know you are. If you're in that room, you pull in $100,000. Well, because I know the numbers, that's wealthy in the black community. You're in the top 1% in the black community.
That's right.
So you're the big fish in a little bitty ass pond,
That's true.
but you still a big fish, right? And you probably revel in being that big fish. I know when you go to Thanksgiving with your family, you the fucking man at the table. You understand what I'm saying? I know you are, because we're failing at such a high rate, right? So your $100,000 ass job puts you in a position of power in that little bitty ass pond.
That's right.
Right? Which also kind of in a lot of ways reinforces the bullshit that you spew in these meetings. Because if you don't have that position, who are you in this world?
Yeah, that's true. That's his signature of worth. I mean, that's the symbol that people use. But you know, you are unique, man. You have a different kind of socialization pattern that enables you to see through a lot of that stuff. And I don't think you may not realize how unique you are in that sense, because a lot of people can't do that. They can't separate. They can't analyze. Critical thinking is a very difficult thing to do for a lot of people, even no matter how much education you get, because as you say, you get channeled in a certain silo, you know, and you can't. Your whole identity becomes attached to your belief systems and to your intellectual pretensions, and once you lose those, man, you feel at sea. You know, you don't know where to go.
So that's why all of these conversations are one conversation for me, right? And at every level, whatever entity, whatever lifestyle choice you got, all of this shit is being pushed to you in a way, right? And you're attaching yourself to these ideas, and you start to live within that vein.
Yes, sir.
Right? Which is why I have such a problem with the symbolism, right? That's why you're controlled by the symbolism, because you won't invest in the substance. It's not hard to figure this shit out. It ain't, you know. And maybe it's not. Maybe I'm an anomaly in that sense.
Yeah, you're an anomaly. It is
Right.
hard, man. Because most people, that's their context. You're defined by your context, and if you don't have the ability to look outside that context, where you gonna get that alternative definition? You know?
So I heard Antonio Moore say this the other day, and I've been looking for a way to articulate this message myself in a way that it's easily obtainable, easily for you to understand, easily for an audience to understand. Let's say that. Tone said the police aren't the villain. Donald Trump is not the villain, right? White supremacy is the villain. So I use the Neely Fuller quote all the time. Until you fully understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. Now, I've read a bunch of books. I've seen some extremely powerful quotes, but nothing has ever touched me like that quote has touched me. Nothing.
You know, yeah, that it is,
because it really just exposes the entire truth. All of this shit is fake. And you got to pull back the veil to get to what's real.
Yes, sir. Socially, the social aspect of it all. Yeah, and there's a black philosopher, a cat named Charles Mills, who wrote a book called The Racial Contract, and his point is that as well. Many of the theories that we base our philosophies on, our philosophical principles on, were constructed by white supremacists who had Afrophobic tendencies shaping their concepts, and so, as you say, if you don't understand that, you miss the nuance in their concepts and why they, like for example, why Rousseau would say, or John Locke, or Hume, all these cats who we revere as the Renaissance philosophers, who are responsible for these liberal democracies that are all over Europe and this country. They were deeply embedded in white supremacist theories. We don't know that, and as you know, as Neely Fuller points out, unless you know that, you can easily be duped by many of the ancillary levels of logic that these theories make.
Whatever the thinker thinks, the prover will prove, right? Whatever the fuck you think, you can make it prove. You can make it true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So until we start recognizing the nuance and stop operating in fear, which gets back to the Amos Wilson theory of masculinity, right? You cannot allow the fear of the other side of whatever the conversation is.
But you know, there's something else too, man. The fear thing, because in a lot of ways we have to fear because we don't have an alternative. Like Kanye says, it's a choice. Slavery is a choice. And I.
Then we always got an alternative.
But the choice is between lesser evils. That's the choice.
No, the choice is death.
Well, that's
freedom or death. The same fucking narrative that they built this country around.
But that's that you can't develop a society. You can't develop a culture. A plant. You know, we were people living on a plantation. We had to raise our children. We had to create legacies. We had to make sure our children got fed and educated. Death was not an option for many of us, and it isn't now. Death is an option for the warrior class.
Well, hold that thought, Salim. We got to go to another break, man. That was Salim Muwakil that you just heard speaking. I am Tucson Werner. This is What's in It for the Black People Media. You are listening to I Said What I Said. We'll be right back.
Freedom of death.
That's real. Those documents, like regardless of opposition in America, those documents are fucking beautiful. The Constitution is fucking beautiful. We just wasn't included in the goddamn Constitution. The theory of it is genius, though. I think it's genius. The Declaration of Independence is genius. It just ain't counting us. It's a lie, but you ain't counting us.
And like I said, it's an accretion of other of best practices of other cultures. Many of those cultures were us. And that's what all of the Constitution, all of that is basically that kind of wisdom that has been, curated throughout the ages.
Mike, shout out for the stars, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I can't get stars on my Facebook thing, man. I don't know what that is.
This is May's concoction, man. I don't know how that shit works.
Are stars on that one? Do you see stars?
Yep. Nicole, shout out. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the stars. So you can see, I can see what they gave them, but even see here, like in the comments where it gives
I
you
don't
the
see
star.
them.
Yep. So I got mine here, and I could just.
Is that a star?
Yep. So I could get them. I got some in my thing.
Yeah, that's a star. I don't have that. I can't get that.
That's stars, and it just goes.
Now, okay, I don't see a star now. How do you get the star? Well, it says write a comment.
So, wait, let me see. I think they would have went up with that. Well, it's not exploding like they do. Like when I give them the maze, maybe it's because my own. I don't know.
Because I can't get them, man. I've been trying to find. So I go to. In fact, I was hoping Maze would be here so I could leave some money with Tamiko.
He'll be back in a minute.
Because she's been fronting for me, she gave you some stars.
I gotta get this phone set up, man. I'm gonna come out. I might not get it set for the first segment. I apologize.
It's okay, brother.
I got you coming back right now.
Glory, appreciate you. Matter of fact, everybody that sent us stars, man, we appreciate you. Share the broadcast. Some of y'all, I know I'm missing. T. Renee, shout out to you. Appreciate you. We are back. I am Tucson Werner. You are now tuned into I Said What I Said radio on the What's in It for the Black People station. Let's say What's in It for the Black People media. Maze is building a conglomerate over here, man. I'm
doing it,
fully
bro.
Impressed with the brother.
Maze is a bad man.
You know, it's funny, man. Me and Maze have had an interesting relationship for the duration of our engagement, right? And he saw it one way, but his viewpoint wasn't really true. But I've always admired Maze in the sense that he's honest about who he is, right? And I respect that. Mm-hmm. I think if you operate from that standpoint with me, I can deal any way, right?
Yes,
I
sir.
can rock with any capacity.
Yes, sir.
So even in that vein, when I think about our presidential election, you know what I mean? I think Donald Trump is honest in who he is, which makes it easy for me to deal with him. I know what to expect.
Yeah, I guess. You know, I don't know if he's honest in who he is. I mean, I
don't think he can hide it. He's a narcissist. You cannot hide who the fuck you are.
Yeah, that's true. He's a narcissist. Okay, that's cool. He is. But I don't think that's honesty. I think that's pathology.
It's a pathology, but it still forces your hand.
Yes,
you got to show yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's certain people, like I told Maze when I came in today, because I talked about this secret private ass meeting, right? And Maze was like, man, you should bring X, because I told him names. He said, you should bring him on. You should have him on. And I was like, no, because I couldn't control myself in the conversation. I'd absolutely exploit the bullshit. I wouldn't be able to sit here and listen to, and maybe I'm a narcissist, I don't know, but I can't sit and listen to those lies and just accept them, right? For me, it's more difficult to navigate through a conversation where I got to be delicate and don't walk over the landmine. Fuck that. Let's put the chips on the table and let's have a conversation.
Yes,
And
sir.
if we can't do that, then I don't really want to talk to your ass.
Well, you couldn't be you couldn't be one of those conversational journalists. But
No, I'm not objective.
You got to be able to bullshit and
Yeah, I
and
can't
very
do that. If I
compelling
thought
ways,
this
you know?
through, if I have an idea of how this works,
Mhm.
and I believe in that idea, either you're gonna have to change that idea through some shit that you got to spend as much time investigating as I do, or I'm not listening to your bullshit. It's just not in me. You know what I mean? It's just not in me. So now that's why Herb was a great addition to the show.
That's probably caused you a lot of problems throughout your.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely own it, right? I absolutely own it. But it's also about, for me, right? It's like I gotta stand on a belief system. I just have to.
Is that from your people? Your father, was he?
I don't know where it's from, but I've been this way since very young. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, I talk about my dad a lot. My dad was a very interesting character. I told everybody he used to make me read like an hour a night, and I'm talking about very young, right? But the kind of books that we had in the house, it wasn't like, it was like, they came before the black man, Made Me Want to Holler, Justin McCall,
Okay.
all these kind of books, right? So, and I'm talking about I'm 7, right? Some of these concepts was way above my, pay grade. But by the time I'm maybe 11, it's a labor of love.
It's your father, man. He's
a labor of love.
He's crucial. I
right?
can hear that already.
And then I moved through, even through how I moved through the community, it's the same way, right? So I never had to really be associated with this group or that group, but both of them groups knew if you brought it to me, you was going to have to deal with me. I'm not going to stand down. It's just not my nature. Now, it might be a direct reflection of my upbringing. It might be a direct reflection of my experience. I don't know, but it is who I am. And I think there's some value in that.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's some value if we could have a community of men that operated like that. Because what I see in our community is that there's very few backbones. It's a whole bunch of fucking wavering. Matter of fact, I don't even see any value in having a backbone. Most people want you to waver. I think you're more valuable if you do waver.
Man, when I was doing journalism, freelance journalism, I got a gig one time with a magazine called Success Unlimited. It was a pretty long-term gig. I was interviewing black entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs around the country, and I did that. Johnson, MC Travis, and people in other parts of the country, and one of the things, except for Dempsey, I found that many of the much of black leadership had kind of effeminacy about them. Epicene is the word that I use. Epicene. It's like neither masculine nor feminine. It's kind of this neutral in betweenness, so that you're not threatening to white masculinity, nor are you like seen as a pushover, exactly a pushover. You maintain this balance. And I found that most of the black executives that I interviewed had that kind of mentality, which was interesting. I found it interesting. I didn't write about it because my audience wouldn't have been interested in that. But I noted it, and it was something that I've always been conscious of.
Yeah, I think that's the black male role in American society, though. Right? I think there's almost no possible way as a black man in America that you can move through the ranks of success by what we deem as success as American without capitulating. It don't even fucking exist, really, right? Now, I got, interestingly enough, right, when I was about 14, 15, I got in some real Chicago kind of trouble, right? Some Chicago kind of trouble where you had to get the fuck up out of town or it was going to be a whole nother kind of problem.
I got you.
Right? And I moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Woo. Which was a
culture shock,
right? I had never, I'm from the South Side of Chicago, for real indie, early 80s, 90s, where, it wasn't gentrified. You didn't even, white people was like Bigfoot. I tell people all the time, like, you heard about them, but you didn't really see them. That was like, you didn't see white people. They just wasn't there. So going from that to Cedar Rapids, Iowa was an extremely different kind of an experience.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 15 when I went to Cedar Rapids. And this was my first experience in any kind of diverse community, right? Let alone just being dropped into a sea or a bastion of whiteness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it was a bastion.
My experiences there, it gave me some understanding. You know what I mean?
Really?
And it was a different fucking world. And maybe again, because you said, you pointed out that I'm a different kind of dude, so maybe I was internalizing that shit in a different way than the people there were. But it was different, right? And young boys my age, when we kind of living in the spirit of masculinity. While you 14, 15 years old, everything is relying on how tough your ass
That's right.
is. You know what I mean? How much testosterone you got, right? And I noticed early on that all the boys my age, the vast majority of them was broken already. At 14, 15 years old. You know, they were already broken. Like, they wouldn't even look white people in the face.
Wow.
You know, and I ended up building a relationship with another brother that we had a real solid relationship, but he was from out of town too. He got shipped there under the same act that I got shipped there under. You know, and through the duration, it's funny, and I count it as a blessing too. Be clear, I count it as a blessing to my life, right? Because it slowed my life down in a way that gave me time to focus, gave me time to channel my energy. Ended up getting an academic scholarship to college. Like, if you'd known the trajectory I was on before I got to see the Rappers Eye, you'd have never believed that shit.
Okay.
Like, when I tell people that, how the fuck did that happen? But it was just nothing else to do, right? The bus stopped running at 6 o'clock. It just wasn't nothing else to do. You know what I mean? So the only time I even saw people was at school, you know? So you engaged in a different kind of way. But one of the experiences I had, which was interesting, that when I was in See the Rappers, is that they started to parade me as like I don't know. I was kind of like the poster child for black manhood, the poster child for black students, right?
Is that right? Okay.
I became that guy, but I became that guy because unlike those guys, I didn't stand down. I stood in my proper polarity, and I had pushback for a lot of the bullshit. You know what I mean? But that kind of indoctrination is different in See the Rappers Iowa. Right? Even when you start thinking about regular core class curriculums, the kind of conversations they having or how they're having them. They're shaped different when there's only one black person in your classroom.
That's right.
Just by the very nature of the classroom, it's shaped different. So you get a different perspective, right? So, and that might have had some shit to do with the kind of guy that I am. They were still burning crosses in people's yards when I was down there. You know what I mean? I had a distinct experience down there, man. One time I was in a restaurant. I was in a Taco Bell. It's a true story. And it was a white guy that went to school with us who we loosely knew because he went to school with us. But we didn't know him. We wasn't hanging out with him. We wasn't with him. He was in front of us in the line, but when he saw us come in, he acknowledged us, right? That's it. There was another white couple in front of him. Apparently, he grabbed the white girl's booty or something like that and left. All this shit is happening unbeknownst to us. We don't know none of this shit is even taking place, right? Within 30 minutes, there were like 80 grown white men came to that Taco Bell and beat the hell out of us.
Wow.
Right?
Because she thought one of y'all did it.
Or he was afraid to approach dude because he thought he was with us.
Okay.
So what the guy did was rode about a half a block down, went to a local bar, and just said some niggas harassed me. And I'm talking, and it was so crazy, right? So the first guy comes in, punches my friend. I jumped the fence to punch him. But after that, it was all downhill. Like, it was just too many. It was like 4 of us. It was legitimately about 80 of them.
Damn.
And what was most daunting about that experience is that there was one guy that didn't make it up out of there in time. Because they came in, whooped our ass, and kind of tried to get up out of there fairly fast. But one guy wasn't going to make it up out. We caught one of their asses. And we beat the hell out of that man. But that man had to be 60 years old.
Wow.
Had to be. And I was like, man, we don't even know what's taking place. We just kind of defending ourselves. Ended up, police come, and their response to us was, well, you know, y'all should just go home. Now, the reason why that's interesting is because I had several friends that maybe got caught with a joint or something. They gave them time in the penitentiary. I got a buddy that's legitimately, See Rappers Iowa, got caught with a joint, got 3 years in the penitentiary. So it drew the lines very clearly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It drew the lines very clearly. So in Chicago, those lines aren't drawn so harshly because we have a different kind of a population.
That's right.
Right? So I could do shit here, get in trouble, but I know I'm going home. This ain't, you can talk all the shit you want. I'm going home.
That's
Y'all not gonna do this paperwork. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But here in See the Rappers Iowa, your ass will send me to the prison.
But that's an important. I think that's an important thing. That suburban encounter. You know, like I think Mays is another example, man. Mays' comfort in white settings, his ability to master the intricacies of these white political dynamics is a product of his socialization in Bolingbrook Park.
I would agree.
You know,
I would agree.
And it's an important thing to understand that we need that kind of hybridity. Like I say, critical thinking is hard, man, and we get socialized in these silos, and it's difficult to imagine what life is like outside of it, or to connect phrases and logic outside of it.
That's an interesting perspective you just brought to the table, right? You said Mays is comfortable in those settings, and it's because of that dichotomy of being in Bolingbrook and having that experience. When you start looking at black leadership, and I'm going to say Chicago specific, and Chicago is important because Chicago is the ADOS capital of America, right? So most of the black people in Chicago are really rooted in that, you know, post-slavery kind of tradition, Southern tradition, right? What I recognize is that even when you start looking at black leadership in this city of Chicago, most of those people aren't from Chicago, and they're not rooted in that same kind of experience and spirit, which kind of goes back to your conversation about when you will see black executives that kind of move in that kind of effeminate space where it's not strong this way or strong that way, you know. And I think a lot of that is that there's a I said any black man that comes to this country has to not comes to this country, but any black man that wants to achieve a level of success in this country has to capitulate at some levels. There's something to say about them old Arkansas, old Mississippi, old black men who's like, man, fuck them people. Right? And they raised me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were hard men. You know what I mean? Those were when I think about my grandfather, shit, my father for that matter. And I know at the time when I was born, my father was really a throwback or an anomaly. Right? Most black daddies wasn't even around at that time. But my father was steeped in that kind of tradition, right?
Okay.
Before I could drive a car, I had to know how to change brakes. I had to know, you know, it was rules to anything I had to do.
The more you explain your father, brother, the more I understand where you coming from.
Yeah, it was rules to anything. Whatever the fuck I was doing, there was a rule attached to it, right? Which made me despise my father for a very long time. But I so appreciated him when I became a man, right? So we can get back into that in 1 second. We're about to go to another break, and I believe that's what's going on here, brother. We got 1 minute before we go to the break. Okay, I'm learning all these new symbols and you know,
symbols are important.
Right, the one seat is not my seat. This is Herb's thing, you know. But yeah, to the point.
Yeah, that's a bourbon
dad.
thing, man. That's an important socialization process. And again, man, you know, we you know, our parents are extremely influential, man, in forming our character, man. And fathers, man. If we only realize how much power fathers had, all brothers will be trying to be fathers right now. It's an amazing kind of power.
It's so important. It is so important. You know, I got a 15-year-old at the house right now. I have a 15-year-old son, and I got an 11-year-old daughter. And I know that just me being around them shapes them in ways that, you know, I see them respond in ways. Even when they get on my nerves, I can see little nuance. I'm like, oh, he got it. Oh, he's getting it. Oh,
Very
she's getting
important,
it.
man.
It's very important. So yeah, we gotta take a quick break. We'll be right back. You are listening to I Said What I Said Radio. This is What's In It for the Black People Media, and we'll be right back.
So how long were you in Cedar Rapids?
Man, I graduated high school in Cedar Rapids, so I went it was like the middle of my sophomore year in high school, and I was there for 2.5 years.
Nice job, guys.
You know, it was even more interesting than that, right? It wasn't just going to Cedar Rapids either, right? Like, I went to live with my uncle, right? And my uncle had just came home from the joint, and he had been gone from Chicago all my life, so I didn't even really know my uncle. You know, it was like I had maybe seen him like once or twice. So it wasn't just culture shock. It was shit. I was shocked. It was a random, you know, a family I didn't know. You know what I mean? But now, you know, it's interesting. Like, our relationship is really a dynamic relationship, right? So in a lot of ways, I say we raised each other.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
So and you went to school while you were there? You went to college while you were there?
I went to high school. I finished high school in Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
You know,
What college?
Eastern Illinois.
Okay.
You know, and even college, right? I didn't take none of that shit serious, right? So I think I applied to 3 colleges total. I think I know I applied to Memphis because Penny Hardaway went there, and I wanted to beat Penny Hardaway. I applied to Eastern because my sister went there.
Did you play sports when you were in high school?
I did for a minute. I got in trouble in Iowa too, and I got kicked off the basketball team. So, but that was always a dream of mine, you know. So I applied to Memphis because Penny went there, and I really wanted to beat Penny. I applied to Eastern because my sister went there, and I applied to Livingstone, which was a black college in North Carolina because my cousin went there. I got accepted to Livingstone like at the day of orientation at Eastern, and I really didn't want to be at Eastern, but my mom was like, "Get the fuck out of here! You gonna be down here with these white folks." So yeah, that was it, bud. So, but even that that whole journey in essence, right? Like going to college, and I had expectations of what that shit was gonna be like. And I got there just like you know, we said a minute ago about what's that education really look like, and are they really getting educated? Are they really just kind of conforming to the system?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I had this expectation of what college was, because in my neighborhood ain't nobody go to college.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What did you major?
I started with art and design, right? But that shit I couldn't afford to do it. Stay there and afford it.
I
That's
gotta talk
very
to Nate about
expensive.
the phone line because the number they gave me not working. Now.
So should I not say nothing about
yeah,
calling in?
Yeah, nothing about calling in. My apologies. We'll figure that out though.
It's all good. Do I need to turn this off?
Phone, you good? You good?
Yeah, so it started with art and design, but by the time I got out, it was just African American studies, because it's where I had credits. You know, at that point, it was just a game to get out of
Did
it.
you have good instructors there, man? African American studies, or?
I had one, man. It was an African brother from, I think he was from Ghana, and he took a certain kind of liking to me, so that might have made the experience a little different.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But he was a dynamic dude. It's interesting, man. Like there's a woman there named Mona Davenport, who's essentially probably about to become the national president of Delta Sigma Theta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a small ass college, but it was some different kind of cast and leadership.
What city is it in now?
Charleston, Illinois.
Because I used to speak. Was it Northern? No, I think it was Northern.
We are back. You are listening to I Said What I Said. I am Tucson Werner. Usually we have my brother Herb Howard here, but he's in Washington D.C. at the march on the anniversary of the 57th year anniversary of the march on Washington, man.
Man.
So sitting in for Herb today, we got my other brother Salim Muwakil, man.
Yes,
This
sir.
is one of the
Yes,
most
sir.
interesting conversations we've had on this station to date. You are listening to What's in It for the Black People Media, and I am Tucson Werner. We are back. Before we left, man, we really haven't really finalized any of these thoughts, right?
I know. Let's go back to the homosexual gripe that you had with me.
So we're gonna get back the homosexual thing, just to put it in a nutshell, brother. I think that I agree with you when you say we're moving into that fourth industrial revolution, right? And there really isn't any need for people.
That's right.
But the most affected by that theory is going to be our community, because when you think about it, since we've been here since our inception, we've really just been a labor force. We don't even operate in the private sector anyway.
That's right.
Right?
Bottom caste.
So where the money is, we're not going to affect that shit. And where the money is in the first place, that labor force, that fourth industrial revolution, is not going to affect that. They're going to control that labor force. So the only place those computers are going to, or at least right now, the only place that the computers are going to take over the job or the workforce is at very low level jobs. You know, like Amazon today, right? When you start going to their warehouses, it's really just drones flying around,
That's
picking
right.
shit up and dropping shit off. You know what I mean? When you go to the bank, there's really no need for a bank anymore. You have an ATM. You know, when you call into whoever you're calling into, it's going to be automated or prisoners. Let's be clear about that, right? What they've always been, automated or prisoners. Well, those are jobs that low-level employees usually maintain. Even the grocery store with the self-checkout shit.
Yes, sir.
You know, Amazon just created a grocery store not too long ago where there's not one employee. You walk in, you put your shit in the cart.
CVS, and a lot of CVS's today, man.
You know, it weighs your shit. You go out, it charges your card, you out of there, right? So those jobs usually are the jobs that those are the economies that we kind of control.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And that's a fucked up idea in its essence, because if you only working in them spaces and you're in America, you're kind of struggling. How are you surviving in the first damn place?
We're
You
on
know
the edge
what
of
I mean?
survival.
We're
man.
on the edge of survival in the first damn place.
And predatory attitudes are too common in too many of our communities. You know,
But
because of that.
it forces it, right?
Forces
It
it,
forces a
absolutely.
predatory. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It just forces it. So,
But you know, it's going to become, to the point where this country can't sustain its losses. It will become too costly to maintain a dysfunctional black community. Right now, the criminal justice system is sucking it up. It's transforming our failures into successes in the criminal justice context. But soon it's going to reach a point of diminishing returns, and society itself will completely suffer as a whole, and the competitiveness of American capitalism will be diminished seriously, unless somehow this country deals with creating these failures, these social failures that wind up in the criminal justice system.
I think they are dealing with them right now.
Yeah, but it's able to absorb them now.
Mhm.
But soon it's going to reach a point of diminishing returns. Already you see strains, like there's some prison revolts and whatnot that you read about here and there. But soon, man, it's going to become completely treatable because it will become too virulent.
So I agree, right? It's also why I think we need to embrace that understanding of masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think we're going to have to push that agenda. For me, I think that's a positive, and I say it in this vein. So let's finish one thought.
Okay.
Let's. So back to the homosexuality
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
right? In that vein, when you start thinking about, the automation of everything, right? It's exactly what you just explained. There's going to be pushback, right? There is a predatory nature to existence in our community, right? But at the while, the poor ain't gonna have nothing left to eat but the rich. And at that moment, we already see that taking place. We're shifting how we respond to that predatory nature. That shit that happened downtown the last 2 weeks is not something that's normal in this city.
That's right.
You could tell Inglewood, shit, we can go back to the days of King. They tore up the fucking West Side. They ain't tearing no white shit.
That's right, man. That's what I'm saying. All this is unprecedented.
Right, it's all unprecedented, but it's
with the-
all very natural in response to how the universe actually operates.
Okay, that's
right?
cool. Yeah.
When you fuck up one ecosystem, I'm gonna move into another one. It just is what it is. You throw a baby in the goddamn water, it's gonna swim. Certain things in us are just innate. You ain't gonna control the shit all the way through.
That's why I think reparations are inevitable.
They are
inexorable.
Either they're inevitable or we're gonna destroy this.
There you
motherfucker.
go, bro. Exactly
That's
right.
the only option.
Exactly.
That's
right.
the only options,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So when you hear the response or the backlash, like them kids, specifically from us, about them kids don't need to be looting, and fuck you. I'm with all that. Tear this shit up because it's gonna push it's gonna push the bar further and further down the line. It's gonna push the bar further and further down the field. But let's not lose context of where we're going. That's exactly why that pushed the homosexuality, at least in my mind, in the way that it's being marketed to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the way that it's being marketed to us. Again, it's not a gender conversation so much to me. Well, it is kind of a gender conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's this frequency to emasculate and make feminine, right? Not just a sexual choice no more.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're taking on a whole different identity, right? And in that, the very nature of that identity, right, there's a level of, what's the word I want to use here without being disrespectful, I guess you could say. The very nature of man is to force the agenda, right? To push the ball further. The very nature is this level of aggression, right? I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make sure my family survives. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make sure my community thrives, right?
My community.
My community, that's part of that, right? It has to be part of that.
Because if you just say my family or my personal thing, I think that's what distinguishes one of the things that enabled humans to be, because we're not as strong as gorillas or any of the beasts. It came to that group thing, they got us. So the only thing that enables us to prevail is our ability to act in concert, in unity. As a unit, and that's how we managed to tame as humanity, as a human family, as Homo sapiens who left Africa and populated the rest of the planet. The way we've done that was because of our ability to be teams, to create teams.
To move in concert, I agree, but also to think at higher levels too.
Yeah,
right.
Yes,
A gorilla can't build a goddamn gun. You know what I'm saying? That therein lies the difference, right? You 5,000 pounds, but once I shoot your ass, all that shit is obsolete.
But you only can develop a gun if you act in concert.
No, that's true too, right? There's a zoo in Seattle, and there's this big ass cage, and when you walk past the cage, there's a mirror, and they say you want to see the most dangerous animal that ever existed in the world, and it's a mirror, and that's
right.
real. That's true shit.
Real.
You know what I mean? So we don't have the muscle, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the strength, but with the things that we do well, we do it better than anybody else on this planet.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But again, we're about to go to a break real quick, so I'm gonna make this quick point before I get away from it. I think that what's happening in regards to how homosexuality is marketed to our community, and I think Maze did a show on this one time, and it's really what enlightened me to it, because I didn't think about it in this way before. There's a young brother that Maze was talking to, and he was a gay brother, right? And Maze asked that young brother, he said, what do you identify with most? Do you identify with black maleness? Do you identify with being black? Or do you identify with homosexuality the most? And he, hands down, said, I identify with homosexuality the most. That was very telling to me. That was so telling to me. You are tuned in to What's in It for the Black People Media. I am Tucson Werner. You are listening to the I Said What I Said show. Today I have a guest in, Salim Muwakil. We are taking a quick break and we'll be right back. But yeah, man,
that was telling. That's
Maze had a daughter now. I couldn't believe that shit. Like it was, and then I got a cousin who's a homosexual.
One of your spots after we come back, I'm still trying to figure out the damn phone thing. It's still not working. I got it working on the phone online, but the password's not working online. So I'm still trying to figure it out.
Man, we're gonna be out here in 30 minutes. I ain't tripping.
I got you, brother.
But I got a cousin. So first of all, that homosexual community is a very interesting community, right? You talking about moving in concert and them motherfuckers is together.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? In a way that we couldn't even imagine. Like, I got cousins that's got private investment groups and all kind of shit. You know what I mean? Even their blackness is okay in these sections. Because
we used to have a conversation, man. I mean, getting down. And that's what people are listening anyway. We used to have a conversation about, because it seemed as if a lot of artists, black artists, were homosexual. And was there some connection between creativity and homosexuality? Because there seemed to be such an inordinate connection or relationship between cats who were gay and dudes who were creative, very creative.
So I would say no.
You would say no? Okay.
And I would say based on the same theory. It's about white control and white power. So I think that there's a large homosexual population that dominates that industry, right? And if you want to be successful, how you gonna play? You know what I mean? And we've already acknowledged that we capitulate to get to financial success.
So you think that men would adjust their sexual preferences?
I used to didn't think that, but I'm living in this day and age, and I'm seeing shit that I've never seen before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm seeing. I just can't fathom. Like I'm not anti-gay. I don't give a shit. But you know, I've known some cats since before any of us was doing anything. 8, 9, 10 years old, we can identify. They different.
6 years old, 7 years old.
He's different than that, right?
But that's how I knew, man. That it's not all socialization, but I think there may be.
So we are back. You are listening to What's in It for the Black People Media. This is Tucson Werner. This is I Said What I Said Radio. Today we got a guest in the studio with us, Salim Muwakil. We keep having these interesting conversations off. It's really not offline, because as soon as we go to commercial, you all can still hear us some of the times. But it's hard to stop these conversations, man. And I was trying to finalize the thought around homosexuality and about how I think there's an agenda that is being marketed to us. And it's in reference to that fourth industrial revolution is coming.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because what that fourth industrial revolution in my mind is going to spark is a physical revolt. It is. It's no way to get around
because the people will be so unemployed and
because people will be starving at that, right?
Yeah.
It's funny that we're in this presidential cycle. Right, and during the primaries, I didn't have a dog in that fight. I really didn't. But I started to admire and like Andrew Yang a whole fucking lot.
Man, he's
because he was the only guy on that panel that was, and I don't want to say he's the only guy.
Universal basic income, man. That
was on the panel that was smart, but he was willing to talk about the truth of what America's experiencing. Now, I would have to assume that everybody else on that panel knows that shit too. I would have to assume because they part of the constituency that creates that world, right? So they know about it, but they know if they start to talk about it, there's going to be a level of alarming that happens that's going to drive this country in a different direction. It just has to. It just has to, right? So when you start thinking about that, fourth industrial revolution where there's no need for a labor force and our addiction to capital, oh yeah, this shit is going up in smoke. There's no way around it. This shit is going up in smoke.
Unless people, like what happened pandemic, man, we produce money, produce currency and threw it out to the people.
Or what happened in the pandemic, they create some other level of fear that keeps your ass stuck in your house. Because they ain't going to keep producing money.
They're going to have to run out eventually.
They're going to run out of money. They got to produce something that's going to scare your ass into operating or conforming. They have to. Because if they don't, the money's going to dry up. And then the people are going to come to the streets and tear shit up. There's no way around it. Chris Rock has a joke to say, he been saying this shit for a long time. He said if black people really knew how much money white people had, it'd be a revolution in the street every goddamn day. And that's true.
If we knew how much we were owed, there'd be a revolution. Man,
either or.
Either
or, right?
$100,000 each one of us.
He also has another joke where he was like, I'm one of the top 5 black comedians that ever exist in history. That's arguable, right? That's arguable. He said Jay-Z lives in my neighborhood. He's top 5 rapper of all time. That's arguable. Mary J. Blige lives in my neighborhood. He was like, you know who my fucking neighbor is? He's a dentist. He didn't invent teeth, but that puts in perspective the differences in the worlds that we inherit.
That's true.
You got to be the best motherfucker in the world from the black perspective or the black diaspora to live next door to this random regular dentist. And that's what that joke really breaks down. If
Yes,
you
sir.
really knew how much money these motherfuckers had, you would be going to war every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think what's happening is the veil is being lifted. There's no way for you not to understand how much money they have. Because we ain't got none of it.
Yeah. That's why, man, there was a lot of hope among certain theorists that the pandemic would provoke an understanding of our relationship, our international relationship. You know, when it was afflicting Britain and Germany, there was some sense that there may be a coordinated attempt to deal with it, and a coordinated economic attempt to deal with the economic consequences of the pandemic, which are amazing and is equal to the depression, to the Great Depression. And if there was a unified attempt to address this issue, we'd be further along in our global understanding of economics. It offered an opportunity to address that, but we failed. And the Trumpian model has truncated that attempt that people were trying to make, those connections between the advanced economies to try to get a more socialist perspective on dealing with the resource distribution. They were making some steps in that direction, man. But that's all gone now.
But so again, until you fully understand why it's privacy, everything you think you understand will only confuse you, right? So even in the context of how we talk about this election cycle, right? And I got my own hang-ups with Joe Biden. If you ever heard me talk, you know what it is. I'm not hiding that. I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. It just is what it is. I refuse, right? And that don't mean I'm voting for Trump. I don't fuck with him either. I think they both the devil.
So you don't mind if Trump wins?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. But it goes to my point, though. Let's push the revolution.
Okay.
Right? Because hopefully we will have this shit worked out by the time my children become grown people.
That's what you say, and heighten the contradictions.
Heighten the contradictions. Let's push it, right? Again, my whole value on this planet is just creating a better pathway for my children and the children that come after them.
Yeah,
for
but
the
if
next
your
generation.
children, in a sense of chaos, man, if there's chaos, when the contradictions are heightened, how will your children benefit?
Well, in chaos also lies opportunity, right? Chaos is a ladder.
Okay.
So it's about how you see it. You know what I mean? The Viet Cong was not supposed to overpower the goddamn.
But you talk to Viet Cong now, man, they consider that a lost 2 decades.
Maybe
man.
so.
It was war. It was
and
war.
so with Haiti, right? I'm
War.
named Tucson. I get it. But some shit you just got to lay on the line. You just have to. You know what I mean? You gonna win or lose. It is what it is, right?
It's like
but you got to shoot your goddamn shot.
It's like the Nat Turner conundrum.
It is.
He knew that a whole lot of people wouldn't join him, and that the white folks would get mad and start killing folks. But he figured, I got
to the Kanye conversation, right? You always got a choice, and sometimes you got to ask yourself who benefited the most out of that Nat Turner contradiction. Maybe it was more worthwhile just to perish in the fight.
Oh man, you'd be wiped out, my brother. There'd be no Tucson.
Maybe not. But there wouldn't be no slaves
There'd be more
either.
justice in the universe.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe there's some value attached to that.
Yes, sir. I got you, man.
Right.
I hear you.
We always make that motherfucker the hero in the movie. We make Jesus the fucking hero. Right? Every religious deity that we honor lived that kind of way. But when it comes to us making those kind of sacrifices, we like, fuck that shit. I don't live with that kind of conundrum. Fuck that. You right. Let's go. You want to go? Let's go.
Okay.
Right? And let's get this shit over with fast. Let's address it and deal with it fast. Let's go. But I think that's also the cure to most of our ills in most of our communities. It's like this level of revolutionary honesty. Being able to stand in front of all of the damn insecurities that you have. That's how you get to real spiritual growth. Standing in front of all those goddamn insecurities about yourself.
Okay.
Even if it's death. Face all that shit head on. My dad died of cancer, right? And he died of a very rare form of cancer. Like, and maybe this is about my upbringing too, right? So, and it came out of nowhere. At least to me, it seemed like it came out of nowhere. Went to the doctor for some random shit. Like early 60s, right? Went to the doctor for some random shit. Wasn't feeling good. Came home. Talking about he had this rare form of cancer. Within a month,
Wow.
he is like from 180 to like 110 pounds within a month, right? And first of all, let me say this: I'm the last surviving member of my whole family,
Wow.
right?
bro.
And that's been for a while now, right? My siblings, everybody. Back to Vietnam. Now, nobody gonna say this on record, but I think my father got sick in Vietnam.
He was in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he got sick in Vietnam, and even my sister passing away the way she did, I think he passed it down genetically, right? So I've been reading about it, and there's a possibility that I might have it, just because of the very nature of him being my father, right?
Agent
and
Orange.
maybe that
Agent Orange,
right? And maybe that works into the way I live my life. You know what I'm saying? I got to be honest. Like when all of them passed, I was like, all right, I can't be that goddamn arrogant to think this shit is gonna pass me by, right?
Have you been tested in all?
I make them do all them fucking tests to me. I make them do all of it. But even that, right? I used to be scared of the doctor. I'll be real. You're going to do this shit now, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
all of them fears slowly got pushed out of my life because I lost all my family. I can't move like that no more. I'm kind of like a orphan out here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you operating like that, you kind of got to fend for yourself in whatever capacity. You know what I mean? So fear ain't really on the table, goddammit. My kids going to eat. My wife going to be. It just is what it is.
That's
right?
beautiful that you
And
got
it's-
to that point, man. That's enviable, man. Actually.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You know, I don't know if that, but it does play into how I live my life, right? And I think there's some value attached to that. And just to the point of my dad, like he got down to like 110 or something like that in like a month. So whatever was gonna happen, it was looking like the writing was on the wall. And how he approached that shaped my understanding of death in a different way too.
Like what? What do you do?
So from a spiritual context, right, I'm from Chicago in the realest way possible. So I've seen people die at the hands of gun violence. I've seen people die naturally. I've seen a lot of death. I've experienced a lot. It's just part of the environment of being a Chicagoan, right? It is. You specifically in my generation.
Yes,
You
sir.
know what I mean?
I know it.
I think I've known like 40-something people that's been died at the hands of gun violence. Like people who go to war don't experience shit like that. You know what I mean? So it shapes how we look at death. And when you look at the kids today, they have a very different view of death
That's
than
right.
even I do.
That's right.
Right? But it does become normalized. You know what I mean? It's not a fear thing anymore after you've been through 40 of them. You know what I mean? But in my dad's experience, like my dad moved in with me when he was going through this process, and he died in front of me. Like I knew the day he was going to die, saw it all happen, right? And the shit was peaceful. It was so peaceful. I'd never seen no shit like that. It was so peaceful.
Wow,
I recited a poem to him, and he just kind of shifted away. Now, me being the kind of cat that I am, I'm looking at this shit for the lessons instead of being steeped in sadness, right? And again, I've seen a lot of other people pass away in my face, and I ain't never seen nobody go peacefully. I've never seen.
And he
it.
went.
And it was
absolutely
legitimately peaceful. Even if you read like the what do they call that when you get to your last stages and the doctors can't deal with you? Hospice. Even if you read the hospice books, they warn you of the violent nature of death, right? But my father's shit wasn't nothing like that. So how I internalized that is, from a spiritual standpoint, he did what the fuck he was supposed to do on this planet
and was content.
and was content.
Go on out.
He did everything that he was supposed to do on his planet. I don't just mean that to the shit the socialized world say you're supposed to live like. I'm talking about the shit he wanted to do. You know, he lived how he wanted to live. He was an artist.
You did you ever take any psychedelic drugs, man?
No.
No.
I can't do no fucking drugs, man. I ain't never been good at that.
No,
It don't work on me.
Not
man.
even herb.
I've done it, but it don't work. I mean, not to say it don't work. I'm not comfortable. It puts me to sleep. I ain't with that shit. I like being on my
Well,
square.
because when you talk about the spiritual stuff, man, it reminds me of what's going on with folks with the mushrooms, psilocybin and.
I think it's some value to it. There's some other shit called like coyote or something like
peyote.
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 Like to my
That's
dad.
mescaline.
He did that shit. He
He
used to
did?
go to the Indian reservations.
There
and
you go, bro.
do all that
That's
shit.
why he died in peace.
Yeah, he lives his life like he
Yes,
really
sir.
did. You know what I mean? Now, and I've seen so many other people pass away, and it's never peaceful, right? And when I juxtapose their lives to his life, they might have met the social standard, they might have did what the world says you're supposed to do, but they're never at peace. Now, my father was exactly opposite of that shit, right? His dad, he wanted to be an artist. His dad said, "Man, you ain't gonna never make no money with that shit. Fuck you. I'm gonna do what I want to do." Right?
So was your father an artist creative artist, or was he?
He was a visual artist, man. He was a photographer. I was looking
Okay.
up some stuff on you the other day, and I saw that you was a Chicago history maker.
Yes,
He's
sir.
also noted in the Chicago history
okay,
makers.
okay.
And I think that's interesting because it also points out the flaw in blackness in this country, right? To be noted as a history maker. I also noted that we had Winters Without No Goddamn Heat. That's some shit that, you know, to think about that, it's like, God damn. You
That's
know
a
what I
good
mean?
point, man.
You know what I mean? Like, you're noted as a fucking black history maker.
Like
and-
Ben Yakinen, man, he died in poverty. Too,
yeah, you know,
something.
we go out in poverty. King died in fucking
Yes,
poverty.
sir.
You know what I'm saying? That kind of shit is, to rationalize that is insane.
Yes, sir.
You know
this
what
is
I
why
mean?
when Mays talks about the need for thinking about our economic resources, this is where, you know, we need to be serious about that.
That's
too.
true, but the white author Richard Rothstein created a book that said that we was a contagion to wealth.
Yes,
And that gives a different perspective, right?
Yes,
it's
sir.
not that we're not doing the work to get
Ados
there.
talks about that too.
They
you know
do,
what I'm saying?
right? It's not to say that we don't do the work to get there. It's just this shit ain't for you.
That's right.
And we're gonna keep it away from you.
That's absolutely.
And
man.
that provides another
And that's
perspective.
an important thing to realize too, man. And that's why that's another important thing that Ados brings up is the impossibility almost of us ever reaching economic equity with white America.
Unless physical revolt. Take that shit.
Reparations.
Reparations, that's true too. But
and they'll see the value of it. I mean, you know, it's like I often point out, man, the Union soldiers, brother. They hated even the thought of arming black men because they didn't think black men could handle arms. They thought black men might use them against them. But when they were threatened by the South and by the Confederacy, they armed black men. They knew that if either they armed black men or they were going to be wiped out. And I think it's the same thing with reparations. Either they deal with reparations, or this society is going to crash, bro.
So, I think they'll give us reparations eventually. I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think they're going to give us reparations on the backs of them expecting the society to crash. It'll be a last ditch effort.
Yes, sir.
So when you start thinking, there's other conversations
right
that
about
play
that,
right
brother.
now too that we don't really have and we don't really even fully understand. But legitimately, they are Jeff Bezos and the uber rich. There's like a uber rich societies, not the uber rich societies, but uber rich societies. They're looking at building colonies on different planets.
Yes, they are.
And that ain't no hypothetical shit. They're
Right,
doing
you're
it.
right, you're right.
You know what I mean? So we talk a lot about poverty from the context of race. When you're in that Jeff Bezos kind of category of people, it ain't in the context of race. It's in the context of everybody winning this 1%. We'll let all you motherfuckers fall while we move to Mars.
Yes, sir.
Like,
Yes, sir.
and that's some real shit. Like we talk about it from the hypothetical, but they're legitimately, that's been his life's mission. Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
been his life's mission.
And my man, what's my man's name with the I can't think of his name.
Bill Gates with the
No, not Gates. The other dude with the cars.
Tesla.
Tesla, right?
Yep.
The Tesla cars. What's his name though? The millionaire.
Iman. I forget his name.
Musk.
It's
Musk.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, right.
Elon Musk, right? But that's their life's mission.
That is exactly
Right,
my brother.
and that shit is not far fetched. You know what I mean? I watched a documentary on Bezos not too long ago where he had this shit mapped out, so it was beautifully mapped out, and the shit made perfect sense. Now I'm not a science guy like that, but just from a logic standpoint, I could follow the train of thought, and I don't see why it's not possible. You know, you got people taking trips to fucking space right now as a hobby.
They are, man. They are paying big money. To
Yeah,
do
they
it.
paying big money to do it, but it ain't like it's like jumping on a goddamn Greyhound. If you got that kind of money,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And with the
Let's
space
take a trip.
station, they're making it a routine thing.
Yeah, let's take a trip to space, and I think that's kind of where we at with it. Like when they really give us what is owed to us, it's like 'cause they have no more use for this shit. No more use for this.
Okay,
shit.
reparations. Yeah,
Yeah, we got no more use for this shit. So we gotta take another quick break, man. You are listening to What's in It for the Black People Media. This is I Say What I Said Radio. Sitting in with me today is Salim Muwakil. I am Tucson Werner, and we will be right back. But yeah, I think even in regards to like Barack being the president, I think that's what that shit was.
What's that?
I think Ta-Nehisi Coates made a beautiful argument.
Home invasions
Hey,
occur
Steve, you
every
come back,
23
run
seconds,
your
fire
spots,
every 85
and then
seconds, and
however you
medical
want to end, you can hit that
emergencies
3, you can
occur
hit 4-3.
suddenly.
But
In
after
times
that, you
like
got
these,
to
get
finish
secured
up
home
the
and
conversation,
automation and an
right?
affordable
Sorry
wireless
about the
home
phone.
alone
We had to
with
hit 3.
professional monitoring.
Yeah.
This includes
So all you
fast
gotta do-
emergencies response,
So you-
free security
This one.
analysis,
You didn't cover
free
one a second.
equipment, and free
You didn't cover
installation.
the first one.
A
So
limited time
cover both
offer,
spots
be
for this hour because you got to do
proactive. Call
literally
today,
both every
delay.
hour.
Oh, okay.
Spot deficient, brother.
Yeah, I don't know how to do this. But even in regards to like Barack getting the presidency, right? Tanaisi made a beautiful argument about Trump being the first black president. I don't know if you heard that. I think that shit is logical. You know what I mean? But I think Barack set up the platform for him to become the president, which also sets up the platform to shake the world to go in the direction that they need this shit to go in for the duration of this experiment.
Is it really a good idea to have the same?
Some of this shit is inevitable, man. Some of this shit is inevitable. You know what I mean? And when you start thinking about the kind of energies and the fires and the Trump flames, that ain't no new shit. But it does create a certain kind of energy. It creates that little white boy who went to Wisconsin and shoot niggas. And that ain't too far under the surface. There's a lot of them that want to do that.
A whole lot of them, man.
You know what I mean? And either we gonna have to respond.
In fact, I thought that was when I first heard of it. I thought that was the outbreak of it. Yeah, I know it's coming, man, because these Boogaloo boys and those cats are arming themselves.
Yeah. You ain't gonna be able to assimilate or capitulate your way through that shit. They're gonna be hunting your ass.
That's right.
That little boy was hunting his ass. That's what that was.
Yeah, man. That's a daunting prospect.
September 8th from 3 to 6.
What's in it for the Black People Media? Make sure you check us out. What's up? This is the White Club. What's going on?
And we are back. I am Tucson Warner. You are listening to What's in It for the Black People Radio. And this is I Said What I Said. Usually with Herb Howell, but Herb is in D.C., man. I wish we had a chance to call Herb, man. We couldn't get him on the line today, but he's down in D.C.
It looked like it was a pretty good crowd.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get him. When I get out of here tonight, I can talk to him. But I'm sure that, just being in the midst of all of that, he probably wouldn't be able to get into, well, he wouldn't be paying attention. But also, man, we got to do these quick. I know I'm supposed to be doing this much smoother than I am, but I got to do these certain reads. So I'm gonna read them. So, shop at Black-owned and operated Solo Beauty, where you are appreciated and respected. Located at 8158 South Cottage Grove, Solo Beauty Supply can supply all of your black hair care needs. Solo Beauty is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesdays through Saturdays, or you can find them online at solobeautysupply.com. And also, What's in It for the Black People Media is going to change the way you see radio forever. That's because Tuesday, September 8th, Chicago Famous with Mike Love and the Diz is joining What's in It for the Black People Media family. Tune in every day from 3 to 6 p.m. for Chicago Famous with the Chicago radio legends Mike Love and the Diz. They'll talk to everything from music, entertainment, sports, politics, race, culture, and everything happening today. Plus, they'll take it back to the old school for some of the features and interviews that you love. That's right. It's Chicago Famous with Mike Love and the Diz every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on What's in It for the Black People Media. Chicago Famous. Thank you. So, we left off talking about Elon Musk and the possibilities of, colonies on other planets and what reparations looks like. So when I think about the ADOS movement, man, I'm a one of the things that I appreciate, and you're able to do much better than I can. I hear people calling your show all the time and talk about, how Yvette Cornell or Antonio Moore is full of shit and Trump supporters and this, that, and the third. And I don't rock with any of those philosophies, and I don't believe that's true about any of those people. And they explain to them that it's not true.
Right, they do.
Right? But just like I said earlier, they kind of have this kind of energy where it's like a level of arrogance that forces you to shun everything else but the shit they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Now, in theory, I think they're fucking brilliant. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, I think they right. Fuck all that other shit you heard before. Mm-hmm. This makes sense.
Makes sense, man.
Right?
It does.
But because of the way...
I had to release a lot of my prejudice, my biases in order to admit that, but it
makes sense, right? But because of the way we've been socialized and because of the way they present, it's hard for us to hear anything that shuns our belief system.
That's very true, bro.
You know what I mean?
And I want to tell them to ease up on the way they present, but that's part of the reason why I think they're popular. That kind of
but even their followers are very combative like that, which makes it hard for the message to travel.
Yeah, that is true.
Right?
That is true.
So even though they're right as right could be, because of the presentation, it's not being accepted by us in so many ways.
That's right.
And part of the goddamn our confirmation or our assimilation into American culture, I've heard backlash because of the goddamn name is slaves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the fuck you think you came from? right? But that's part of that socialization,
It
right? We
is,
shun
man.
everything that is uniquely us. That is
Yeah.
part of the experience.
And we don't even realize it, man. And I didn't realize. I mean, because when this hit me, I used to say we were created by slavery. That's not exactly true, but I think it is true in a sense that as iterations of the African diaspora, our specific ethnic iteration.
This tribe was created by slavery,
Indeed.
right? There's no denying
Indeed,
that.
man.
And not only that, it's a fucking amazing tribe.
Amazing that we were. That's the
That's the shit I don't get, right?
Exactly
We
right,
might be
man.
the most amazing of all the fucking tribes if we really get to the core of it, right? So what the fuck are we running from?
There you
You know
go.
what I mean? There's so much
There
value
you go.
attached to who we really are.
Yes, sir.
Everybody in the diaspora follows our fucking lead,
Everyone, man.
right? We ain't
Everyone.
following their fucking lead.
And despite the fact that if you ask a Jamaican, is he, does he identify? I'm Jamaican, man. He
Mm-hmm.
no hesitation. Or Trinidadian, who does calypso.
That's
They're
it.
proud of that. We don't want to claim our.
We've been kind of
our
treated
lineage,
like
right?
stepchildren in this country, so I get that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You get the Michelle Obama for the first time ever. I've been proud of the country, right? That's real shit. I get it, but from the very nature of our experience, our communities, to deny our impact on the world,
Our miraculous impact, man.
it's how,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So I've got into this trouble before because I've said this shit specifically like in relation to like the schools my children attend. They go to, and they kind of they listen to their daddy. Right, so they start shit at school because their daddy thinks differently than most of the people at the school think, and they do Black History Month, and even that, it's some bullshit, but they do Black History Month, and you come up there and every picture is, Mansa Musa, all this shit from the continent, you know what I mean, and not to knock down anything from the continent, but the shit that happened right here on this soil is fucking amazing. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Right? And you shun all of that shit. And matter of fact, not only do you shun it, but you deny it defiantly. Right? You deny it defiantly. Our history didn't start with no fucking slavery. That's a moniker in our community.
Yes, sir.
But what the fuck if it did? If it did, it's some of the greatest goddamn history that this world has ever seen.
You said it.
Right? So I push those kind of messages on my children. They go to school like, man, fuck what you talking about. Here's what we was doing in Alabama at this time.
That's
you
good.
know what I mean?
It's good that they're aware of that, man.
But-
That's important, bro.
But most of us aren't.
No, we
right?
aren't.
So we struggle to find the value in our own experience.
That's why I think Yvette and Tone are, I think, brilliant in the way they came up with that. And it's almost unbelievable how it took so long for us to clarify it in that way.
That's true, but we've really not clarified it yet.
No,
right?
that's
So
true. We're still in the
process. I
of
think they got the
clarifying.
information, but as a group, we're not taking to the message.
That's right.
Right now, part of that could be about who's presenting the message. Part of that shit is just us denying what's in the. Well, I don't even want to say us denying what's in the message.
And part of it is because we're ashamed of slavery. We're ashamed of that socialization process, and we're embarrassed by it. And so rather, and the lack that it imposed on us, the fact that the legacy of slavery has not enabled us to create what we need to create, and rather than acknowledge that, we deny it, and act as if we don't have those deficits, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge.
So I think that's an interesting statement you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slavery hasn't allowed us to be able to create the things that we need to create.
The legacy.
The legacy. But maybe that's only in context to white social norms.
Part of it is our lack of cultural capital. The fact that we couldn't develop the kind of behavioral traits that enable us to be successful socially, or enable us to be successful as a group. We never had a chance to develop that kind of cultural perspective because we were too busy addressing white supremacy.
So again, I got a little pushback, right? I think every culture that's ever been created in America soil is black culture, with the exception of capitalism. I think we sell every culture that we create to conform to capitalism, and I think every culture that we create becomes an economic engine for this country.
Well, now I don't mean culture in that way. I mean our behavioral patterns, our deep culture, what entrains our behavior. Like, for example, Jews are socialized to revere literature. I mean, it's part of their it's part of their religious socialization, and so it's deeply embedded into their cultural their cultural makeup, and they have that cultural capital in the way they are raised. We don't have those kinds of things because we couldn't impute those values into our culture because we had to deal with white supremacy. We had to confront that. It distorted the way we looked at ourselves because we had to deal with it. We never had the chance to create an autonomous culture in the way that others. The Nation of Islam tried it, and that was again the brilliance of Elijah Muhammad. The brilliance of Elijah Muhammad is he incorporated that cultural capital in a religious perspective, just like the Jews did. And so it was they were socialized almost inadvertently to be uniquely successful wherever they are.
Well, even to the point of Elijah, right? When Elijah was at the helm of the mosque, I think we had four or five mosques at the time until he brought the minister along, until he brought Malcolm in.
I think five.
I think it was five.
mosques.
And I don't want to deny the value of five, right? But after Malcolm, it was like 60.
Malcolm did it, man.
Yeah, Malcolm did it, right? And then you get the minister behind them. And part of that, not to take anything or any value away from Malcolm or any value away from Mr. Farrakhan, but they create a better presentation. They create a better show. And we love the theater, right? So we're about to sign off. But one of the things I want to do, man, and this is just for us as a people, is that sometimes we got to get behind the producer desk. It's time for us to get behind the producer's desk.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? I am Tucson Werner.
I'm
Salim Muwakil. Man, I appreciate you so much today, brother. I really want to do this more regularly.
We need to do it, man.
You know what I mean? You are listening to I Said What I Said on What's In It for the Black People Media. We are tuning out. We'll see you all Monday. I'm assuming, no, Herb should be back by Monday. And we'll see y'all then. Appreciate you all for listening.
Out.
Yeah, man. So
beautiful, brother. Beautiful, beautiful.
And I appreciate you, bro. I wish I had Herb here with me so he could man this shit, because it forces me to think differently. To try to keep up.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. You got to do that technical thing. It takes your focus away.
And I'm not really good at it.
Well, you master it easily, man. You're a quick study.
It sound good. I just study a lot. I ain't a quick study. I just dig deeper. That's all.
Yes, sir. Well, my brother, it's been a pleasure.
Man, I feel the same way, man. Harlem, right? That's where you, New York, Harlem?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Harlem.
Man, I used to want to move to New York so bad. That was my plan initially.
Yeah.
At college, I was like, man, I'm going to New York, man. Fuck this shit.
Yeah, it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get used to Chicago, man.
Yeah.
The ADOS-ness of it, because I was cosmopolitan, like I came here with reggae. I was reggae
It's different in the sense that like it's moved so much faster, and for creative, it's like, man, the world opened up for me here. That's how I always felt about it. But one of the things, my old man used to push, and I believe in this too. It's like we always looked at network vertically. Right, but the real success is when you can network horizontally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, man, if you want to go, take your ass now.
Yes, sir.
Because if you wait too late, you gonna outgrow that demographic, and they gonna grow, and they not gonna fuck with you. You know what I mean?
Man, your father sounds like a wise man, brother.
Yeah, he was a bright dude, G. He was a real bright dude, man.
Great job, gentlemen. Great
Oh
job.
man, thank you, bro. Great job.
Thank you for rolling with me. Thank you for rolling with me. It's my very first show producing here, so
Go ahead, bro.
I guarantee it's gonna get better. I got you right here, brother.
Get good recommendations.
I appreciate it. Took the liberty of writing your spots out while we out there already, so we ain't gonna waste no time.
Hey man, I'm going. I gotta rush.
Appreciate you, man.
Let me get set up over here.
So hold on, man. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
What's up?
I need to get this back to Mazes. I don't want this one here. I just want this one here. Is this still online?
You could just turn it off at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to.